what's up, everybody? Isaac here, Civil Engineering Academy. Excited to be with you on another sweet podcast episode. I'm excited today. I bring on a really great guest, Erin Friedman. She actually passed her PE exam recently, despite, huge obstacles in her own life. She's a single mother of two, and being able to balance that. Not only that, but she was out of the industry for almost 10 years, and being able to find her way back into the civil engineering industry, overcoming the hurdle of passing the PE exam, and finding a career that she really likes and really enjoys, and starting that whole journey. But just a fascinating story with Erin. I think you're really going to enjoy this. It's very inspiring for anyone that's in the same shoes, or if you're just trying to, struggle through the PE exam itself. Definitely some good tips here for you as well. So Erin Friedman's going to be coming up right after this. You're really going to enjoy it. So stick around to the end. See ya. All right, Erin, we are live. Thank you for jumping on the Civil Engineering Academy podcast. I appreciate you taking the time to do this.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate you having me.
Yeah. I am wearing the Hawaiian shirt because we actually have spring weather. I'm in Utah, and we've had record snowfall, so it's been great.
We've been also having random snow. Finally going to be a nice weekend.
Awesome.
Going to be excited about that.
Well, I always like to start these just talking about your own journey into civil engineering. So you've got a really inspiring story I think will resonate with a lot of mothers that are out there, or women that are trying to get back into civil engineering.
Yeah.
But why don't we just start with that? How did you get into this world of civil engineering? Why did you go that route?
I think just as a kid, I always loved construction. I loved architecture. I loved buildings. I loved rocks. I loved all the things that kind of led me down that path. But I went to school. I went to college. My first couple of years, didn't really know what I wanted to do. Kind of tried a few different majors, and then after a couple of years, decided, I think I want to be in structural engineer. So I was like, oh, that's civil engineering. Let's go do that. So transferred to a different college where I got focused and pursued that degree, and that's what led me down that path. And
So take me through maybe the next steps of life, because you graduated, you finished school, and then you kind of left the industry a little bit, right?
Yeah,
Where you
definitely.
tried to so what happened after that?
I took a big detour. Well, I worked very briefly for a small structural engineering firm in Sacramento, California. I'm from California originally. And after, 6 months or so, was given an opportunity to help run a family business, a custom cabinetry business. So moved out to Eastern Oregon and did that. Yeah, it was quite a change, but I got a lot of experience from that phase of life. So we ran this manufacturing business. I was kind of like head designer. It was really, I just love designing and I love drawing. So it was kind of right up my alley. But
was that a lot of AutoCAD use with that too?
It was different software. There's special software for cabinetry design called Cabinet Vision, I think. It's been a while.
I was just curious.
But yeah, it was kind of cool because it would do all of the drafting and design work, but then would also produce assembly drawings and cut sheets and all that to build from. So it was really cool. So it was kind of like I was still doing some engineering.
Yeah, a little bit.
Creating plans for them to build from, or getting to watch it be built. It's actually really cool. It's a good experience. I learned a lot about business and how to run a shop. And we ended up selling the business after a few years. And then I moved to Boise, Idaho, and worked for one of our clients, actually, a remodeling company out there. And I worked there for about a year as a designer, assistant designer, and then ended up having my first kid and decided that it was time to stay home. And 10 years later, I was still home with kids, 2 kids. So, moved around a little bit and landed in Denver, Colorado. So, which is where I am now.
Awesome. So, got 2 kids. We're staying at home, raising them.
Yeah.
And you've been doing that for, you were doing that for about 10 years or so. And then you jump back into the industry. What challenges did you have getting back into the civil engineering industry?
Well, I guess biggest challenge was just even thinking that it was possible. I totally thought that ship had sailed. I said, no way. I am so far removed from engineering. But so yeah, I think it was just my own belief in that it was possible to get back into it was my biggest challenge. But I knew someone that worked in the industry and told me they're hiring and looking for good people. You should just give it a shot. And I'm like, you're crazy. What are you talking about? But yeah, then history from there. Yeah, that's my biggest challenge was just myself and thinking like, there's no way, you know,
Was that mental challenge?
yeah, like I don't belong in civil engineering. That's not what I've done. So,
Okay.
yeah, I felt probably
Well, and I think a lot of people probably in your shoes feel the same way, and they feel like they can't get back into the industry even if they've been out being a mother or staying at home.
yeah,
And I mean, you're proof that that's not true, and it can
yeah,
happen.
yeah.
So I guess some of the other hurdles though is the exams that engineers have to take, and I'm sure maybe you could walk through that a little bit. The first exam that most engineers, whether in school or sometimes if they don't do it in school, take it afterwards is the FE exam.
Mhm.
What was your, what was your timeline for taking that? Any tips around that one?
Well, I was smart and I did it right after college, like right with my senior year, I believe I did it. So I think it was 2002. It's been a long time. I don't remember much of it. I just remember that I did it right after college, or right in my senior year. Um, and I remember thinking it was really hard and there was no way I passed and ended up passing somehow. So, thank goodness, because that one I think would be really hard to take now. I mean, not impossible, but it would
That's
be a challenge. Um, so I guess my advice on taking that one would be do it soon, even if you don't know what you want to do with your future. If you've got that degree, just keep that one in as soon as you're out of college.
knock it out.
Knock it out.
And many people say, I mean, the longer you're out of school and you postpone the FE,
Hmm.
they'll say that the FE is harder than the
Yeah.
PE because you're going back to math and
Yeah.
really hard topics.
Exactly. A lot of like there are things that are just more, yeah, a little more broad, and so I'm glad that I did that.
Awesome.
So I just recommend just get that one out of the way if you can.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
Okay, let's fast forward then, and you're jumping back in the industry. When did you know that, hey, I got to take the PE? That's going to launch my career. And how did you tackle that?
Yeah, and I mean, after probably a year or two, I knew it was on the horizon. Working where I'm at now. I've been where I'm at for 4.5 years or so, or
Okay.
almost 5. So a couple of years in, I'm like, it's on my brain. I know I gotta do it, but I'm also thinking, how am I going to manage this? Like, there's no way. So, you know, years just kind of keep coming and going as they do. And I don't know. I just told myself, when the time was right, I would kind of know. I mean, there's never a right time. I feel like there's an opportune time, when you're ready to really tackle that. So I just kind of just gained as much of the experience as I could and decided that when I felt like the time was right, that I would do that. And that just happened to be this last right after the holidays, like you go through into the Christmas and New Year's and it's just craziness and you got so much going on at home and work. And after that settled down, I was like, I think this year is the year. I want to give it a shot. So yeah,
That's amazing. So you only took it one time
yeah.
and you were able to pass. What was your study habits like? Because you're a single mother, you have 2 kids, and I'm
Mhm.
sure you're balancing all of that.
Yeah.
Um, what was that like for you?
Well, I think what I what you have to do is you have to manage your time. Like it's kind of funny because you have to have some really like rigid time management, but you also have to be flexible because things come up. Sometimes you do the both. Um, Going into it, I knew like after the holidays, going into winter is not a time of year that I enjoy very much. So I was like, winter's a great time to study for me because I'm not a skier or snowboarder.
You like the sun.
Yeah, I love the sun. Summer is when I thrive. So I knew I had all these great plans for summer, and I was gonna, you know, that's not when I'm gonna want to study. So winter was definitely a time, and for study habits, I knew like I got to give in like a couple hours during the weekdays. That was my goal, is try to get at least 2 hours in every weekday, and then really get some good chunks of study time on the weekends, which is tough, but it's temporary, and that's why I just kept telling myself, this is temporary. It's not forever. And just give it a try and see where it goes. So yeah, study habits were weekdays were tough. I would block out on my calendar at work, like my lunch hour, like make it look like I'm in a meeting or something, so that I'm not available during this time. So I would take a conference room or something, or just sit at my desk and watch some videos or do some practice problems, and then maybe try to do another hour after work. But like I had kids that needed rides everywhere that I had to get home for. I needed to be at this and that and that. So I didn't have all this flexibility after work. So tried to get as much aid as I could. Like,
how much time do you think you put into it? Do you think?
At the whole thing, I don't know.
Like 2 hours a day, and
I definitely try to get,
or on the weekend, 4 or 5.
I would try to get a couple hours a day during the week, like every weekday. There were definitely some days that just didn't happen, and I rolled with it. The weekends, I definitely did bigger chunks. I tried to get like 6 hours, both Saturday and Sunday, 6 to 8 sometimes. It just depends on how the week went. If I didn't get a lot in the week, I maybe would add it more on the weekend. But I know that
sacrifice.
Yeah, it is a sacrifice, but I felt like if I was going to go for it, you got to go for it, and just got to put the time in. That was advice that one of my coworkers. You just got to put in the time. I knew that time is precious. So,
what depth exam did you take?
Transportation.
Okay, definitely falls in line with what you're already doing.
Yep. Yeah.
So, did you people love to know like how you tackled that depth section? Were you able to get like codes and standards from coworkers, or were you blown away by how much theory there was on the exam, or was there not a lot of theory? What kind of things did you experience?
There were some conceptual like theory problems, more I'd say the morning than the afternoon. So, but as far as studying for depth, yeah, definitely get every reference manual that they're going to provide you. No matter, just figure out how you're going to get it. Thankfully, at my job, I have access to all of those. So I downloaded them all PDFs, and only use those to study, plus the reference manual that you get. So I didn't use anything outside of that. So getting really familiar with those manuals was pretty critical. I was already familiar with like the AASHTO grid book for my job, but I don't do a lot of traffic, so I didn't know like highway capacity manual very well, and some of those other ones that just getting really familiar with where things are, what chapters are kind of important, and using those as your main study source is pretty critical, because you need to know where stuff is.
Were there any surprises, or did you feel confident when you left the exam?
There were definitely problems that had me thinking afterwards, that I kept thinking about in the middle of the night, like, and that would, but yeah, I mean, I didn't feel like I didn't leave the exam feeling like I totally bombed or anything, but I also didn't want to feel like, oh yeah, I nailed it, because they have a way of tricking you, and they put answers in there that match what, if you did this wrong, interpretation, there's their answer. So you see it and you're like, oh, I got it. But I guess, reading the questions thoroughly was key. And I used every minute of the 8 hours that I was given. I know some people can assure me that I used every minute, and I went through, and I caught a few, I think, that I misinterpreted and was able to correct. So, it's not a race. Take your time.
Read through that problem.
Read through those problems. Like,
good.
A lot.
Well, I think that's great advice for, anyone taking the PE exam. So appreciate you sharing some of those tips.
Yeah.
Um, as a mother and staying home with kids, what advice would you share with, I guess, other mothers that are in the same boat and looking to try to return to the industry?
Yeah, that's a good question because it's tough. You feel removed from the industry and you're not sure you belong anymore. I guess my advice is like you belong. Like you can make a comeback. Anybody can get back to this. You just gotta believe in yourself and know that while you may not have all the technical skills yet, you have a ton of life skills. Like you're bringing something to the table that, not everybody can bring. So you have, skills that, are valuable to a company. So, um, technical skills can be taught and trained. They're looking for good people, people that are assets to the company. So don't discredit yourself and what you've done because staying home with kids isn't a walk in the park either. So, it's definitely builds character.
And I think there's so many skills you could translate into the workplace too.
Many, management. You got management now. You can manage a household.
You can manage conflict.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. So, you bring a lot to the table. I mean, I think, making connections with people is also really important. That's kind of what got me back in was knowing someone in the industry that, even put the idea in my head that I could get back into it. So, connecting with people and then, finding mentors and people that believe in you, that helps too. So
that's great advice.
Yeah.
And, I can tell that like when someone instills a little bit of positivity or confidence in you, it's like, all of a sudden that door opens to go explore it. So, even though you've been out of the industry a while, it's like, hey, you can still be a great contributor here. And from there, it just, it could take off. But, inspiring people a little bit and being a mentor for the next person, I consider you and what you've gone through definitely could be a mentor to a lot of people. So,
yeah,
that's really good.
And I'd be honored. I always discredit myself and be like, oh, you're just, anybody can do this. Like, but yeah, I know, I definitely do have something to offer in that I do come from a unique background. And I do hope that I can inspire people to know that it's not an impossible task. So,
I know. Even before we jumped on, Erin was like, well, it's not a big deal anymore. And no, it's a big deal.
I know.
Like, you're a single mom. You're past this.
Yeah. I'm not a big, booster, but it is a big deal. And I have to keep reminding myself, don't forget, that was not an easy thing that you did. So,
well, let's
proud of yourself.
Yes, definitely. Well, let's fast forward now. You're working now. I'm assuming you still have challenges. You're working, and you're still a mother, so you're still dealing with all that kind of challenge. But do you have any tips for women in the industry? Have you had any challenges being in the civil engineering world that you could share with other women that are in this field?
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely it is tough. Like I struggled big time with imposter syndrome and feeling like I don't belong and that kind of thing. And maybe that applies to more than just women, but I think definitely making those connections and finding maybe other women that you work with that can, that you can lean on, that you can ask questions and, that can support you and mentoring newer women that come into the industry too. That definitely helps. Yeah.
Good tips. Well, also now that you're working, has there been a favorite project that you've worked on that has stood out in your mind? You're like, I feel accomplished.
Yeah, the last project that I just came up of, it was a great experience. I learned so much. It was I-17 in Arizona, a portion about 24 miles or so between Phoenix and Flagstaff um, that we widened the highway, adding a lane each direction, and a portion of it was actually flex lanes. Um, that project I started on the proposal phase when we were trying to get the project, and we ended up winning, and I saw it all the way through to RFC. So when it got released for construction, and it was probably about a couple years at least that I was on that project, and I got to. It's kind of funny because I designed this one little side route, just that wasn't part of the main highway, but it had on ramps, off ramps, and um, it had a little bit of everything. And everyone thought this would be a great starter project for Erin. She can take this on. It actually ended up being quite challenging little road. So I learned a lot, and I have to thank a lot of people that helped me through that. But it was a whole realignment and new profile. It had an overpass. Just had a little bit of everything. You've got right of way constraints. It had walls. It had lots of calcs that needed to be done, and
That's fantastic.
so it was for such a little road.
It was a big headache.
It was a little bit of a headache, but it was
Good luck.
yeah, looking back, it was a great learning experience. I learned so much from that. So that's definitely been, I guess, my favorite project so far. I haven't been on too many, but yeah, it definitely helped build my confidence and know that
That's great.
I can do this.
Well, this is, this has been great. Thank you for sharing all these tips with us and inspiring women and mothers, to look at coming back to the industry, and then you can provide value here for sure. Is there a good way or best way for people to connect with you if they had questions or further wanted to reach out to you?
Yeah, I would say probably LinkedIn. I think that would probably be the easiest way.
Okay.
I am on social media, but not as, active. I kind of come and go. So, but like LinkedIn, I definitely check that. So,
Okay, we'll make sure we link that, and if people have questions, they can reach out to you. We love doing that. So,
yeah.
Well, Erin, is there any other tips, advice, anything that you want to kind of end this with?
Let's see. I think my advice is just, always keep your perspective on what's important and know that this is just a test. Like it isn't, going into this, I knew that I could have cracked under the pressure that I put on myself if I didn't keep perspective. And so knowing like, hey, if you don't pass this, you can always try again. Like, and it's not a waste of time. I guess that was also one of my concerns was like, I'm going to put all this time into studying, and if I don't pass it, I'll just have wasted all that time. You don't actually waste that time. Like I learned a ton, studying. So at the end of the day, I came away smarter, and I felt more confident in my own job, using the manuals and knowing where things were. And so there's still a benefit, even if you don't pass that first time. So
That's awesome.
Just keep your perspective, but
And earlier we talked about some of the helps that you had taking a course. You found Civil Engineering Academy's free resources online.
Yep.
Well before that too.
Well,
so we're always a big advocate of getting help when you need it, and we're definitely a resource that's available to people as well. So check that out at Civil Engineering Academy.
Your free content is amazing. I can only imagine the subscription or paid content is. One of the things that I think was really critical in my studying was a practice exam. I know you've been mentioning that a lot lately on social media and stuff, but so key, because the first, I think it was maybe 2 or 3 weekends before my exam, I decided I'm going to sit down and do an actual 4-hour time breadth portion test. And it was eye-opening to me. Like not just the questions, but the stamina it took to sit for 4 hours and do that. And then the next day I did depth. So I did one weekend, I actually did 2 4-hour tests. And then the next weekend I did it again. And then went into my exam, not completely blind to like, this is what it's going to take. You have to keep your cool. Don't panic,
Very true.
level head. And so the practice tests I think you offer some of those. I think it's invaluable. So
Yes.
doing that timed practice test.
Yeah, we got a couple. We've got ones you can download. We even came out with a CBT simulator. So if you want to really put yourself through it, go check
exactly how it's going to be. Because I don't know, I'm the type of person that likes to know what I'm getting into. So if I'm like totally going in blind, then that makes me uneasy. So it's kind of nice. And I caught, some things that I made some silly mistakes on in those practice tests and was able to not make those the second time around. Like reading a footnote at the end of the table that you maybe missed. There's always these little things that you're like, oh, I didn't read that or no. So we're glad to catch those before going into the test. So I do highly recommend a practice test.
Thank you. Erin, thank you for doing this. Great advice for the PE, great advice for everything else we've touched on today. Thank you for doing this, and hope you have a great weekend.
Absolutely. Thank you. You too.
All right. See ya.
Bye.